Welcome everyone, and thanks for joining us today. Today we're going to be hearing from Lesley Bloy about Operation Clean Spots, which is a project of the African Marine Waste Network. I'm going to hand over to Lesley now, and she can get started. Thanks everyone.
Hi, good morning everybody. Thank you very much, Tara. As Tara said, I am Lesley Bloy. I'm from the Sustainable Seas Trust, and today I will be presenting on Operation Clean Spots. I'm just waiting for my slideshow to load. So today I'm just going to start by telling you a little bit about the Sustainable Seas Trust, for those of you who are unfamiliar with our work. We are a charitable trust, a non-profit organization and public benefits organization based in Nelson Mandela Bay, and we have a mandate to work in Africa. The biggest program of the biggest program of Sustainable Seas Trust is the African Marine Waste Network. Because we are so uniquely located in South Africa on both the west and east coast of Africa, we can partner with both the Nairobi and the Abidjan Convention to really be a network for all of Africa. So working very closely with partners as listed on the screen at the moment, and many, many more. So head over to our website to see our other partners. And as I said, we work with both the west coast and the east coast of Africa. The African Marine Waste Network aims to be a network for both continental and island states of Africa in the field of plastic waste and marine waste. As we are all aware by now, the plastic problem is a global one. We heard from Peter Ryan that it isn't necessarily entirely true to say that 80% of ocean plastic originates on land, and it depends where you're doing your sampling. If you didn't manage to check that, attend the webinar last week, you can find it recorded on the SST website. But it's often cited that about 80% of the ocean plastic originates on land, and it finds its way to the ocean through water channels such as rivers and stormwater drains. And so it's really important that we realize that what we do on land ultimately affects the ocean. It's also said that about 75% of that land-based pollution in the ocean comes from uncollected or mismanaged waste. So now I have a quick poll for everybody who's in attendance. What do you think is the primary driver of this pollution? A, education. If people knew better and understood the impacts, they wouldn't litter. B, a lack of care. I know better, but I don't care enough to do better. Or C, services or lack thereof. Waste streams just aren't managed as they should be. Please select your answer and let us know what you think is the primary driver of this pollution problem. Right, when we have some results streaming in, we'll share the results and we'll see what the audience thinks is the primary driver. So amazingly, 59% of those who submitted an answer think that it's services or lack thereof, and waste streams just aren't managed as they should be. It's really interesting to see that there is a large portion, 21%, that think it's a lack of care. I know better, but I don't care enough to do better. Very, very interesting. These poll results will also be shared later. Right. So as we heard earlier, and rightly perhaps, that to a large degree, it's because the waste structure and the infrastructure to manage waste just cannot cope. Africa is the largest growing, has the largest growing population in the world. At a population rate of 3.5% per annum. As you can see from the graph on this slide, Asia is expected to taper off and sort of plateau, whereas Africa continues on its upward trajectory. Along with this fast rate of population growth, we also have the fastest rate of urbanization. They sort of go hand in hand. And as a result, our municipal structures just cannot cope. This results in illegal dumping, and then coupled with this, there's often a lack of value of waste. I'm not going to pick up waste, I can't get anything in return. And I don't need to speak very far on what the impacts are. Of course, plastic and mismanaged waste pollutes precious resources, threatening ecosystems, ecological health, human health, the tourism industry, and so much more. Furthermore, sort of relatively new studies indicate that plastic and plastic pollution also contributes to greenhouse gases, and it's expected that this increase will that the contribution will increase from 4% in 2015 to 15% by 2050. So you'll see that there's the next poll up. In your opinion, what is the plastic resource that you are most dependent on? A, definitely my cell phone. It has my life on it and I cannot live without it. B, my laptop, all my research, all my data. Or C, the wrapping all my food comes in. We're living through a pandemic. Yes, I want my things wrapped. When we have some answers from this poll, we will showcase it. And this was just a select few things that came to mind when I was setting up the poll. There are, of course, numerous other things that contain plastic. Challenge you, and the SST staff were in a workshop this morning, and we were challenged to look in the room around us and list all the plastic items. Challenge you to do the same, and you'd be amazed at how much of our daily lives contain plastic. So I think we're in a room full of scientists. The prevailing answer there was my laptop, all my research, all my data. Great, thank you very much. So we acknowledge that plastic is a phenomenal resource. It is incredibly diverse with huge properties that make it very versatile and used throughout our daily lives in everything, in our cars, in our laptops, in our cell phones, in our refrigerators, in the stationery we use, in the clothes we wear. And so we're not too sure that we can get rid of, well, actually, we know that we cannot get rid of plastic. The real challenge is how do we manage it properly, and whose responsibility is it to manage it properly? So we heard from Linda Godfrey a couple of weeks ago that 29 countries in Africa have already implemented some sort of regulation against plastic, either at the local or at the national level. And further study says that up to 34 African countries have put a ban or heavily taxed the manufacture and distribution of plastic bags, single-use plastic bags. There's also a partial ban in some of the countries on single-use plastics and on certain products. And then, of course, there are taxes that regulate the manufacturing and distribution. But where do these taxes go, and are they used to manage the resources that are being taxed? And then there's this new term, or relatively new term, extended producer responsibility. But who exactly is the producer? Our next poll is, do you think that bans on single-use plastics have the desired impact? A, most definitely. The fewer plastics created, the less plastic in the environment. B, undecided. It's not the plastic, but the management that's a problem. Or C, definitely not. It just shifts the impact from A to B. Just going to wait for a couple of answers to come in, and then we'll share those poll results too. Great. So undecided. It's not the plastic, but the management that's the problem. Takes the lead there. Just above, most definitely. The fewer plastics created, the less plastic in the environment. Very interesting poll results. Little bit undecided in this realm. And it sort of links in with the first poll, where we see that it's the management of waste that we're pointing a finger at again. Right, so moving on, and to whose responsibility it is. There's two different approaches, either the top-down approach, where we call for a system-level change that then drives policy, driven by the policy, or a bottom-up approach, where policy change is driven by behavior, by people refusing to buy in to what is out there. However, we know that both these approaches come with pros and cons and drawbacks, and that they're often driven by economics, policy, the resources available, the services, and so much more. Who do you think has the primary responsibility in plastic waste management? A, governments, most definitely. They should be regulating plastics. B, the producer. They're responsible from cradle to grave. Or C, the consumer. Don't be a litter bug. You're just waiting for a couple of people to decide on the answer, and then we'll share the results. That's a very close split. I think it's the closest we've seen today. So 39% of people think that it's governments, most definitely. They should be regulating plastics. And 43% say the producer, who are responsible from cradle to grave. Question is, who is the producer? Is the producer the person who harvests the raw and virgin material? Is it the person who converts it into a usable format? Is it the person who then packages their product in it? Is it the retailer you buy your packaging from when you buy your product? So the producer is a very broad term. Thank you very much for your opinions and sharing your thoughts there. So this brings me to our project, Operation Clean Spot. And the ultimate aim of the African Marine Waste Network is to take Africa towards zero plastics to its seas, realizing that this needs a collaborative approach from all stakeholders within the plastic value chain and all individuals. We don't need anybody doing it perfectly, we just need everybody doing it the best way they can. Realizing that education is fundamental and that the impacts on the sea start on land. And so the project I'll be talking to you about today is Operation Clean Spot. Operations Clean Spot aim is to reduce the litter in Nelson Mandela Bay, particularly plastic litter, by 90% by 2023. We're focusing our efforts on land-based sources of plastic, as we know that ultimately, if they are mismanaged on land, there's a high chance that they will end up in the marine environment, and it's much easier to manage them on land at source before they're allowed to enter the marine environment. And we're going to use the different departments within SST as a tool to bring about this change. And I'm going to tell you how. This is a pilot project. It's being trialed in Nelson Mandela Bay, where the Sustainable Seas Trust is based. But what we really hope to do is learn from this project, all the successes, as well as the challenges, and roll it out elsewhere in Africa, particularly focusing on coastal cities where populations are high, therefore waste loads are high, and their proximity to the sea means that they are at imminent risk of that pollution ending up in the marine environment. Nelson Mandela Bay is no different to a lot of other areas in terms of mismanaged plastic waste. As mentioned right at the beginning, we see this pretty much everywhere. We don't have to look far to see illegal dump sites, a couple of pieces of litter flying around. And it's really disheartening, especially as you can see in the one picture, the proximity to water bodies is incredibly close. And ultimately, these water bodies are going to end up in the ocean. So the concept of Operation Clean Spot is to engage with everybody, people where they live, where they work, where they play, and where they study, and to partner with governments, industry, schools, businesses, individuals, and more, and to encourage people, to empower people to adopt a spot, to clean their spot, that is doing a physical cleanup of the area. So on your daily walk, when you walk around your block with your little pooch, you can take a bag along, you can fill it up with all the litter you see. This constitutes cleaning your spot, and then you'll tell SST through the website where you are cleaning, where you're focusing your areas, and we'll map your spot. And ultimately, what we hope to see is Nelson Mandela Bay go from a map covered in red polygons to a map that is full of green areas where there have been multiple cleaned up, and we can showcase who's cleaned it, what it looked like before, what it looks like after, and how frequently they're cleaning up this area. And don't worry if your area has already been adopted. Join in, take a socially distanced walk with your neighbor who's cleaning the same area as you, and make it a social gathering. There are 5 steps, with 2 being optional for Operation Clean Spot. As I mentioned, the first is to identify your area. It can be on your daily walk. It can be on your way to work. It can be your playground at school. It can be your university campus. It can be absolutely anywhere. You'll take ownership of the spot and you'll inform SST that this is the spot you have chosen to adopt. You'll plan your cleanup. This might require a little bit more thought. It might just be on your daily walk and picking up any litter you see. If it's a larger area, you may need things like bags. You may want to wear gloves for hygiene purposes. You will possibly need a phone or a camera along with you so you can take a before and after photo. And if you so choose to collect data, you will need a data sheet or the Litter Logger app, which should be launching soon. The third step is to actually do your cleanup. So take a couple of before photos, show us how littered the place was beforehand, do your walkthrough, and then take some after photos for us. The fourth step, I beg your pardon, is optional. And this is where you can choose to separate your waste and collect data on what you have collected. So how much waste have you collected by weight or number of bags? How many items have you collected? And you can categorize the items. There are 4 different levels of data sheets that we are busy developing for the project. So you don't have to go too in depth. You don't necessarily have to count every toothpick or every straw or every cigarette that you've collected, but you could just separate it into recyclables and non-recyclables, and by weight, how much is recyclable and how much is not recyclable, etc. Locate, using one of our interactive maps, a drop-off point for waste and recyclables close to you, and then dispose of your waste responsibly. You can then upload your cleanup to our SST page. And so I mentioned earlier that we'll be doing this using the Sustainable Seas Trust's various departments as the tool for change. The first is, of course, research. So we'll be using aerial imagery to map some hotspot areas that need some really big corporates to get involved and help clean the area because they might be heavily polluted. And we will use the aerial imagery as a platform of which to build our interactive map, where you can upload your site, you can log in, you can check the site, you can check how many spots have been adopted, you can check what spots have been adopted by who, and what the area looked like both before and after. As mentioned, we'll need these photos from the spots adopters. And then any data that is collected that you might choose to collect and upload can also be shared. And then, as I mentioned, we'll be launching a litter logger app, which can be used in conjunction with this, where your data sheets will be easily available and on hand so that you can easily upload the data that you collect on your waste, on your cleanup, or waste that you collect on your cleanup. The next tool is education. And as we saw in the polls, there's a perception that lots of people don't realize the risk of waste and pollution. And therefore, we really want to host community-based workshops to raise awareness about this, the potential impacts of pollution in the environment and on you and human health. We want to use these workshops as a platform to showcase and demonstrate how to clean up, how to separate waste, and how to use the Operation Clean Spot manual. And this will include education aimed at both children and adults. SST have a wire-structured fish called Munch. It's in the shape of a cedar can, and Munch moves around schools in Port Elizabeth, and it's compartmentalized where you can put different recyclables, and it encourages you to sort out your different recyclables into the different compartments of Munch. It's a really interactive, fun learning tool to use at schools. And so we encourage you to get in touch with us and adopt a Munch. And then we want to be an information hub for the public on what's recyclable. How do I go about this? Where do I drop off my recyclables? Once I've done my cleanup, where do I drop off my non-recyclables? We also want to use social media, or media in general, as a tool for change. Of course, it comes with creating and raising awareness. We want to use radio, digital media, print media, videos as we respond to visuals very well, signages and websites as a tool to bring about this change, to create a hype and to get people involved in adopting spots. And then a couple of our goals. Our goal, our very first starting of this year, is to launch to the public, to host a large cleanup event at the inaugural site, COVID permitting, to host 5 educational workshops at least, with follow-up workshops to ensure that action has followed knowledge. We would like to reach 500 cleanups conducted by the public by the end of the year, and we'd like to host a themed cleanup just for fun. And then in 2022, we'd like to host a 1-year celebration of our cleanups, on the anniversary of our launch. We'd like to reach 500 spots adopted on the map. We'd like to host additional workshops with follow-up workshops. And we aim to publish an annual report, newsletter, and perhaps some of the data that's been collected. This is our team. That's me as the project manager. We have Taylor, who's the project researcher, and we have Timisa, who is the events coordinator and deals with project events. Please feel free to contact any of us if you have any comments, suggestions, concerns, or any great ideas you'd like to share on how we could really make this project a success. The impacts are tangible. We can see the difference. So help us achieve it. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Lesley. Please feel free to send through your questions in the Q&A box. I don't see any there yet. We can also reshare or relaunch some of the polls if people would like an opportunity to vote again. I think one or two people may have been conflicted with one of them in terms of identifying some of the major issues or some of the major contributors to pollution. In the meantime, Lesley, I wonder if you want to comment at all on the citizen science aspect relating to the Operation Clean Spots and how we can use this as a tool going forward.
Definitely. Thanks so much, Tara. So we know that beach cleanups have taken off hugely in popularity with International Coastal Cleanup Day and beach cleanups being a common event in coastal cities. So we definitely know that there's a hype being created and awareness being raised about the challenges, which is amazing. And it gives everybody an opportunity to get involved. Operation Clean Spot is sort of using a similar model, but taking it a little bit more inland and not just focusing on the coastal stretch. So the entire Nelson Mandela Bay. And so there's an opportunity for everybody to get involved in this project. And as Tara mentioned, you know, it really engages citizens. You don't have to understand plastics or the polymers that make up plastics or the properties of plastic to get involved. It requires citizens taking ownership of an area. You know, fantastic if you do have all that knowledge, and please share it. Share it with your neighbors and encourage them to recycle. But it also means that anybody can get involved. There's no real equipment required. You need a plastic bag or an alternate sort of bag to collect your waste into. You need gloves to keep for hygiene purposes, to make sure you stay clean and healthy while you help the environment become clean and healthy. And you can then submit data, which would be really interesting for us as scientists to use to sort of capture what are the common litter items, in what area are these litter items focused. You know, we'll know which area you've adopted. We'll know what constitutes the litter you're collecting in that area. And it'll be very interesting to see if it differs from a suburb sort of 3 k's away, you know. And so there's definitely real potential for citizens to engage with us, share their data so that it can form part of this scientific project.
Thanks, Lesley. There are a few questions that have come through here. Carl said, thank you, Lesley. Wonderful. Your thoughts on how applicable this approach would be in other parts of the world, such as Norway?
Sorry, Tara, my internet broke up momentarily there. Could you repeat Carl's question?
He said, wonderful presentation. What are your thoughts on how applicable this approach would be in other parts of the world, such as Norway?
So this would be a very interesting question. I mean, I would need insights into what the problems are in Norway. I mean, we've started to discuss it. In our group, we've realized that fishing, sort of aquaculture systems, there's a lot of aquaculture generated plastics, which I would imagine are perhaps a lot more higher value than, for example, your everyday litter that we might be picking up in Africa. But that's exactly the idea, Carl, is that we would like to implement it here, use Nelson Mandela as our pilot, and then roll it out elsewhere, having taken lessons learned, but also being aware that the situation and the circumstances may differ. And so therefore the common litter items might differ, you know, the value of the waste might differ, the sort of structures to deal with that waste might differ. And so we'd really like to do that. We'd like to show that it can be used in different areas. You know, It doesn't have to stop in Nelson Mandela Bay. In fact, we'd like it to not stop in Nelson Mandela Bay. We'd like people to start similar things elsewhere. We'd like to come sort of host workshops and impart knowledge and lessons learned and get involved in such projects elsewhere. Because really, it takes citizens caring about the environment around them and taking ownership of the environment around them and making a change. So I definitely think it can be applied way beyond Nelson Mandela Bay, and that is our hope.
Thanks, Lesley. There's a question that says, do the citizens who get involved get anything in return? And are there any plans to motivate them to participate?
So what they get in return is the gratification and the satisfaction that they now have a clean route that they're walking along, a clean playground for their kids to play in, and a clean environment to live in. But above and beyond that, we'll also be we'll have the interactive mapping platform where we can very proudly show that this spot was adopted by Tara, and this is the amazing impact Tara has had. She has taken the spot from looking like this to looking like that. And so there's that reward. So definitely mostly a visual reward. As the project grows, we might try and host some friendly competitions, maybe like a floating trophy at schools in Nelson Mandela Bay, where, not necessarily on the quantity of waste collected, but the size of the area cleaned, and sort of have a trophy that floats around. So we would like to reward people, but we'd also like to think that taking ownership of your area and cleaning up the environment is a reward.
Thanks, Lesley. As Isabel also mentioned 2 weeks ago in her webinar, there are also, psychological and physical benefits to having a clean environment. And as you mentioned, if the spot is already clean, it may motivate people to have it remain clean, rather than just accepting it as the status quo.
And hopefully, if your friends, if your friends saying, "Hey, on the weekend I cleaned up this area and I did this and got out in the lovely African sun," hopefully it'll motivate the neighbor to do the same.
Thanks, Lesley. There's another question that says, in Norway, people are in general quite well educated regarding the impact of plastic waste in nature. How would you go on to motivate people to collect waste?
I suppose the question there comes in, and it almost links back to one of the polls, where, if people are aware of it, then why is littered waste still such a prevalent problem? And I suppose if we could understand the answer to that question, we could understand how to motivate people to care a bit more. It goes back to the poll, and sort of very small portion of the poll seem to think that it was people know but don't care. So if people do know, is the waste not in their daily lives, is not in their immediate areas? Because in Africa, you walk down the road, unfortunately, and you encounter litter. Not everywhere, but in a lot of the areas. And so, you don't have to go far to make this effort to clean up. Whereas perhaps, it's a case where it's out of sight, out of mind. But hopefully, raising further awareness, sort of giving rewards like interactive mapping platforms, showcasing the good that sort of, it goes above and beyond the individual too. We want corporates to get involved and businesses to get involved, and a lot of corporates' social responsibility is heading the way of environmental care and environmental cleanliness. So, perhaps we could get corporates involved, and if we get corporates involved, we might instill some interest in the individuals they employ, and so it might filter down.
Lesley. There's a comment that says, great talk. I think a major plus would be to boost our recycling drop-off points and then educate people on where they are and make it convenient for the residents of PE. Will the proximity to recycling points be included in the Operation Clean Spot map?
So we can definitely look at adding it as a layer to the Operation Clean Spot map. That's a great suggestion. We also do have a different mapping resource called Are You on the Map? And this is where different sort of organizations that work within the waste realm, whether they be researchers or sort of recycling points or transfer stations or landfills, there's an opportunity for those to be mapped. And so we could definitely add those as a layer. And if you haven't gone over to our website, please go check out our maps resources and see if there are any sort of recycling points that you know of that aren't on that map.
Thanks, Lesley. There's a comment that says, very active project, well done. Your focus seems to be on individual and public. How are you going to interact with businesses and extend producer responsibility?
So there are businesses that we have a local organizing committee, and a lot of them represent businesses, and we're engaging with the Nelson Mandela Bay Business Chamber, and so we definitely do want to engage with businesses, and we have partnered with businesses for other cleanups before. You know, we've partnered with Pick a Pay and International Postal Cleanup Day. We partnered with Mantis on cleanups, and so we're going to reach out to organizations that we've already partnered with and hope that the network grows through that. A little bit of healthy competition, and you know, look at what your competitors doing. What are you going to do? Come get on board and help us out too. So there's a hope to definitely reach out to corporates, and as I mentioned, more and more corporates have corporate social responsibilities focusing on plastic, the environment, waste, and so you and education. You know, there's a huge educational component of this. So we really hope to get corporates on board and for them to clean up even the areas that they're located in. You know, the industrial area is not immune to litter. So we hope that businesses will take ownership of areas that are in their immediate surrounds. That's the exact idea, is that you adopt areas in your immediate surrounds. It's not a schlep, you know, it's where you work, it's where you play, it's where you study. Yeah, thank you for the question.
Thanks, Lesley. There's a question from an anonymous attendee that says, great talk, thanks. How can we help communities lacking municipal waste management services? And we may teach them not to litter, but what must they do with the waste?
This is one of the biggest challenges we face, and we are engaging with municipalities. We are, you know, trying to ensure that they're on board with us. And this is really one of the biggest challenges that we need to overcome. And so we don't have the immediate solutions, and sort of temporary solutions provide problems of their own. You know, for example, in South Africa, we get skips, so big metal containers put in certain areas where dumping may be prevalent. But there's all sorts of ramifications of those too if they're not properly managed, not properly serviced. You get a lot of illegal waste sort of ending up there, which shouldn't actually make its way into the municipal waste stream, you know. And so there's definitely huge concerns and problems there. But with that said, in communities, there are a lot of initiatives starting up in South Africa, you know, swap shops, buyback centers, informal reclaimers or formal reclaimers. So there is a lot of potential. We just need to know what potential is out there, promote that potential, and partner with stakeholders that we need support from.
Thanks, Lesley. There's a comment here that says, how long do the cleanups normally last?
So that would be up to you, and depending on the size of the area that you adopt. And the frequency with which you clean it is also up to you. So we're trying to not be too prescriptive, because we want people to get involved, and we don't want to say every Saturday you must go and do this, and it must be at least this size. The idea is that it's what's convenient for everybody, or every school, or every business, and that's different for everybody. So the idea would be that if you have a 1-block walking route that you do frequently, that would become your spot. And if it takes you 10 minutes to walk around that block and collect a litter, or if it's particularly dirty, it takes you half an hour to do that, then that's how long the cleanup would last. Again, the frequency with which you do it is up to you, but we'd like to encourage you to do it more frequently than not. So, you know, every couple of weeks. But it really just depends on the circumstances, the individual, the size of the cleanup. When we host actual cleanup events, they're usually a couple of hours with a nice muffin as a reward and something to drink. So it entirely depends on the situation and the area.
Thanks, Lesley. There's another question that says there are communities wanting to take action and clean up illegal dumping sites and ideally replace them with community gardens. Having support to create an event and to publicize the efforts and offer some assistance perhaps in managing waste would be extra impetus. Who would such community groups contact to see if they can get support and if people can get involved?
So I mean, if there are community groups that we know of, we could definitely try and help out where possible. Can't promise any services or the permission to do such a thing, especially as it's municipal land. But the first port of call would be the ward councillor. Given our governmental structure, is to raise this with the ward council and to ensure that you have the correct permission and authority to do such activities. But you know, in terms of conducting the cleanups of those areas, in terms of sort of imparting some knowledge about the waste and how to responsibly dispose of the waste, and that SST could definitely get involved with some educational workshops and the like there.
Thanks, Lesley. There's a question from Holly Nell that says, fly tipping is a major issue around the world. Cleaning up these spots are not necessarily sustainable. How can we reduce fly tipping? In the UK, they place large tires in hotspot areas. These tires are painted and decorated with flower pots. They have found this reduces fly tipping in that area. I'm assuming fly tipping here is referring to illegal dumping?
I imagine so too. And I think that you know, there's definitely a benefit in creating a value add to an area. So for example, cleaning an area up and making it a soccer field, cleaning an area up and putting tires with plants in it, so that there's a value add and a beauty to it, that then will discourage people from dumping illegally. But you know, ideally we wouldn't want that to be the solution. We wouldn't want people to do it just because there's now a pretty pot there. We'd like people to not do it, because you shouldn't be doing that in the environment. And so it's an ongoing matter, and this is where we really hope that education can play a role, because are people doing it, again, this comes down to the poll question, are people doing it because they don't know better, because they don't have an alternate solution, or because they just don't care? And so, you know, we'd hope to think that with sort of some education, some workshops, perhaps providing, you know, partnering with waste services that might be able to provide a solution and a way to then responsibly rather dispose of the waste would help that problem to a degree. And then there's always, you know, community watch groups and naming and shaming. If I know that it's been done in certain municipalities in South Africa, where there's sort of your green scorpions and that can issue fines and the likes.
Thanks, Lesley. There's a comment from Fiona that says, I've seen the concept of individuals taking ownership and cleaning parts of their city in Osaka, Japan. And just a comment to look into the incentives that were used there, just as a suggestion to look into.
That sounds incredible. Thanks, Fiona. If you want to, if you maybe reach out to me, perhaps you could send me a couple of the links or some of the knowledge you have on that. That sounds incredible. Thank you.
Then there's another comment that says, this is a great initiative. How will you get communities living in rural areas to get involved in Operation Clean Spot, considering the need for technology? This is really where we need to educate and encourage individuals to take charge of waste management in their areas.
So definitely, and that's definitely a very valid comment. So thank you so much. Yes, so there is a dependence on technology, in so much as sort of like before and after photos and being able to upload the sites, but it's not entirely dependent on that. You know, there are ways around that. We could come in and we could take photos of before and after. We could also have, for example, schools in the community that form a drop-off point. If we have the school on board, if the school is actually an adopted area, perhaps they'd be willing to take in forms of for example, if I've adopted this yard and I don't have the resources to upload it digitally, I could then put my street address down and say I have adopted the spot between First Avenue and Second Avenue and Cooper Road and Church Road, kind of thing. And then we'll have an actual square that we could map So there are definitely ways around that. Those are things we have been brought to. So thank you so much for that comment. And we hope that, you know, there'll at least be a drop-off point for that knowledge and that the task being undertaken within the community, so that people in the community who are also getting involved can also be acknowledged and their information shared.
Thanks, Lesley. There's a comment that says perhaps beyond the understanding of the impact on the environment is the need for the general public to understand the impact of plastic waste on human health.
Most definitely, and that is without a doubt part of our education syllabus, and we hope that that's really sort of one of the sticking points is it's not just not good for the environment, it's not good for you if it's improperly managed, not in general.
Thanks, Lesley. Then there's a comment from Carl that says, what percentage of the waste collected can be exchanged for cash? Referencing the talks by Luyanda and Anna B. And how significant is this an incentive to attract participants?
It's definitely an incentive. Thank you for the question, Carl. Without a doubt. Unfortunately, these buyback centers and swap shops and the likes don't exist in every community. So in some communities, it's going to be more prevalent than others. We also don't want to find ourselves in a situation where people are being selective about the waste that they're collecting. So while we want to buy into the circularity and we want to encourage individuals who adopt spots to support community initiatives, to support buyback centers and swap shops, we want any and all of the waste collected. So the proportion that's able to be swapped out for financial incentive is really dependent on the waste that's being collected, the area it's being collected in, because some of the areas have those support networks and others don't.
Thanks, Lesley. There's a question that says, when will the Operation Clean Spot page be open for us to see and use?
Good question. It is in the pipeline. We are busy with the designs and we hope that it will be up relatively soon. As soon as it is, it'll be launched on all SST social media networks. So follow us on Facebook, on Twitter, on Instagram. Keep your eyes peeled to our website, and the launch will definitely, the launch of the Operation Clean Spot page will definitely be announced. We're glad you're excited.
Thanks, Lesley. Then there's a question that says, thank you for the insightful talk. So basically the researchers and scientists have a responsibility to make this plastic pollution environmental crisis being heard and make the grand public aware of its danger, as well as the stakeholders. I'm from Algeria, an African country, and would like to know how I can make a difference at my own level.
So definitely not just the researchers, and definitely, you know, it goes so much beyond that, and this is why we want to have workshops and follow-up workshops, because we want to know that the knowledge share hasn't just stopped there. We'd like sort of there to be a domino effect, and this is the great value of citizen science projects. You know, it doesn't take scientists to make the change, it takes a community, and this is the really exciting aspect of this project, is that anybody who wants to make a change has the power to do so and has the platform to showcase the change they're making. I'd encourage you to get in touch with us, and we can see we would like to, of course, roll out into Africa eventually. And so, I mean, it'd be great to partner with you to hear what work you do and what field you're working in, and how perhaps we could roll out a similar project in Algeria eventually.
Thanks so much, Lesley. I don't see any more questions in the chat here or in the question and answer session, but thank you so much for presenting for us today. For those of you who are interested, there is a link in the chat to the current recycling and waste locations. And we look forward to to seeing all your all your clean spots on the map once it's launched. And thank you, everyone.
And if I can quickly, Tara, sorry, don't let the fact that the map's not live yet stop you from adopting your spot. If you'd like to adopt your spot, if you'd like to get involved, please do so, and just email us and tell us that this is where you're going and this is the spot you're adopting and this is the work you're doing, so that as soon as the map goes live, your spot will be up there.
Thanks, Lesley. Great to get in ahead of the rush. Thanks so much. And if anyone has any questions after this or watching the recording, please feel free to email us and we can answer those for you. Thank you, everyone, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your day.